Hey, this is Jamy Sutton from The Daily Affair and Beyond the Usual on Amazon Prime. Remember, success is a choice. What choice will you make today?
Providing insights to help you grow your business, improve yourself, and add value to those around you. You're listening to the Success is a Choice podcast, where you get a peek into the lives of industry leaders as they share their stories with you.
Welcome to Success is a Choice podcast. I'm your host, Jamy Bechler, and it's an honor for us to have one of the absolute best in our field on the show today. If you're not familiar with eSports, it is an industry with more than $1 billion in annual revenue, and it has millions and millions of viewers on YouTube and Twitch, just to name a few. It's a big deal, and our guest today is as big of a deal as it gets in the eSports community. Stephanie Harvey, who goes by Miss Harvey across the industry, is a 5-time world champion. And she recently just became the first esports player to partner with Hewlett-Packard in Canada to become the face of esports. Miss Harvey is a former video game developer who is also active in charitable causes and advocacy for gender discrimination. Miss Harvey, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. For our viewers or our listeners, give them a little snapshot. I talked a little bit about your bio. I threw out just a few things, but kind of give us a snapshot of, your journey to be a 5-time world champion and to be kind of at the top of the esports industry.
Yeah, well, one thing is that if you guys don't know anything about gaming and esports, it's relatively new if you compare it to sports and other kind of medium like movies and that kind of stuff. So when I was a kid, it wasn't like, oh my God, I'm going to become a professional video game player. It wasn't a thing. Well, now a lot of the kids have that as a dream. So I think the most important thing to remember about my background is everything that I did in gaming and esports, most of it was like kind of voluntary, kind of out of passion, out of like the desire to win and compete in gaming before kind of making it a living. But now in the last, I would say 5 years, it's something that's extremely realistic for kids to aspire to be pro gamers. It's realistic to make a living out of it. And it's something that I've been doing at the moment. And you can compare it to like any sports athlete. Pretty much take your favorite team sports. I'm pretty much the same thing as them.
So when I was growing up in the United States, we would go to arcades once in a while and play Miss Pac-Man or Space Invaders, or we would buy the newest Atari way back in the day. I'm dating myself. Did you grow up playing any of those kind of games or Atari or any of those kind of things?
Yes, I grew up, I'm a lonely child, so my parents bought me consoles when I was really, really young because I loved interaction and I loved gaming and playing, and sometimes they needed a break, so they got me like the Nintendo, the NES, the Super NES, the 64, like I've been through all the generation of it, and I think it's something that's really awesome for my parents. They never really raised me as in, a girl should do girls thing. I've always done like as much like Barbies and Legos, and like I would do biking and go on construction sites with my dad, but I would as well do like cooking with my mom and wear dresses, so it was all around. I was a very, very lucky child.
So what do you remember as one of your favorite games growing up?
I played all the Marios, that's for sure. And for some reason, I really enjoyed racing game when I was a kid because I was able to push myself alone, like always trying to beat my score. But now I hate those games. So it's funny because that's almost all that I played when I was a kid. And now I prefer like multiplayer games by a lot.
Now, you're a professional gamer and you play, your main games are CounterStrike. Is that correct?
Yep.
Do you play other things now to blow off steam or just for fun, or pretty much everything that you play is with a purpose in mind?
Because of how busy my schedule is, when I can afford to play games, I try to stick to CounterStrike so I can kind of always be in the Counter-Strike mindset. But I do play games on my phone when I travel and when I'm in hotel rooms and that kind of stuff. So I play mobile games at the moment. But a couple of years ago, when I wasn't that intense into Counter-Strike, I played everything, and my favorite games are adventure games, which are solo games. But yeah, I really loved like the gaming universe and kind of getting lost in magical and like mystical environments. That's something I really like.
So you mentioned that you were into Barbies, you were into Legos, dressing up, all the typical girl stuff. Did you play traditional sports growing up?
Yeah, I played pretty much everything. My parents took me to lessons of like everything from swimming to dancing to skating to like pretty much everything, soccer, like I don't know. And I stuck to the solo player sports, which is interesting because I'm right now in the video game team-based environment. But yeah, I stuck to the solo sports. So I continued swimming. I continued dancing for a long time. I continued figure skating for a long time. And I kind of dropped all the team sports because committing with other people is something that's really hard for me and something that I do in gaming, but in my spare time, I like to do things my way.
You said figure skating. Were you did you play hockey or like hockey growing up?
Oh yeah, I'm a huge hockey geek.
So what is your, did you have a team growing up?
Yeah, well, when I was, before the move to Colorado, I was a Nordique fan. Then I followed Joe Sakic in Colorado with the Avalanche for a couple years until he retired. And I switched to Pittsburgh because there's so many Canadians in it. And my favorite player is Latin, which is defenseman on Pittsburgh.
Well, growing up, I was a Detroit Red Wings fan. And
Oh.
there were some battles between Colorado and Detroit. And I
Yeah.
didn't really like Colorado much.
Well, Joe Sakic is a legend. I had to love Colorado.
Yeah, they were good. And even though I didn't like him, I shouldn't say I didn't like him, but I was a big Patrick Roy fan. I just wish he was on my team as a goalie.
Yeah, he just re-signed to be the coach of the Quebec team, where I live, the junior league. So yeah, it's exciting to have him back.
Well, nice. You mentioned, you're now in a team-based environment. For our audience that maybe doesn't understand the way eSports works, or in particular your game, CounterStrike, the way that works, talk a little bit about how that game is played and how there is team-based, it's a team-based environment, and how you work with others.
So pretty much in Counter-Strike, if you just look at the game, it looks like a game that has to do with the army, right? There's guns, there's terrorists and anti-terrorists, but you have to know, like, for us, we don't really see that. What we see is pretty much all the teamwork that is necessary to get to a goal, which in this game specifically is to get 16 rounds. And to get 16 rounds, so 16 points, you have to pretty much plant a bomb or kill all the enemy or like defuse the bomb depending on what team you're on. So pretty much there is a goal to each round, and as a team we try to achieve that goal. And to achieve that goal, let's say we take NFL and we take football. The goal is to bring the ball into the enemy zone and score points, right? And so to reach that goal, your team needs strategies to offense and defense strategies, and they need to be able to, without necessarily communicating that much, they need to be able to understand the play on the field. They need to be able to know where to go, what to do. So pretty much in my game, Counter-Strike, it's the same thing. Like, everything, like each round is a minute and 45 seconds about, and everything goes so fast. You have to take split seconds decision and reaction based on what your teammates do, based on what you do. They need to react, and because of all that, we need to spend time together sitting and analyzing our gameplay and how we should do certain things. And I know it's really, really similar to what the Army does. So like the Marines and all these people, what they work on regarding where they're going to aim at, what they're going to do, what's their timing to enter a room, what they're going to look at, etc. It's extremely similar to that.
So how many people, is it a 5-person team?
Yes, it's a 5-person team, and we kind of have a leader, and everybody in the team kind of has a basic role. So, for example, some people are more passive, some people are more aggressive, some people support other players depending on the kind of weapon they have, these kind of things. And we also have utilities like grenades, flashes, smokes, and fire mollies, Molotovs. So that means that there's a lot of teamwork needed to make sure that you don't be a nuisance to your teammate, but you're always a nuisance to the enemies. And I like to call it like a dance. We kind of dance in like some sort of 5-man tango. That's how I like to call it.
Do you have a coach?
Yeah, we do have a coach. Most teams have a coach because you need to be able to analyze the enemy strategy. You need to be able to have someone that is out of the game to pretty much tell you where sometimes you do mistakes and what you should do to fix them. Kind of someone that's in charge of all the work, and that isn't part of the team, meaning like the hierarchy stays equal with the players among them. It's very, very similar to what sports do.
How do you determine like who sets the roles and who gets to blow up stuff and who gets to shoot and who gets to have the starring roles, those kind of things? Is that as difficult as it sometimes is on a traditional sports team?
Yeah, it's pretty difficult because sometimes for some teams it's easy. Like, these players, they're better at doing this, so they should be doing this. But on some other teams, sometimes there's a role that isn't being fulfilled, and some players have to sacrifice what they're good at to just fulfill that role. And it means maybe they're going to have less stats, less good performance overall for them, but the team is going to perform better. So there's a lot of sacrifices that you have to do. There's a lot of not everybody is the same in the game. A lot of people communicate more, a lot of people communicate less, a lot of people have more firepower, a lot of people, like, their aim is less good, so they have to compensate with like their knowledge of the game and their experience. So you kind of need to make sure that you have a balance of our personality and all play style within a team, but at the same time it needs to fit the vision of the leader. So if like players think differently and contradict themselves in the game, you're going to feel it because the tango is going to be kind of messed up. So you need to have like someone that kind of leads the boat and everybody else kind of row towards the goal. And
you're doing all this while you're sitting in a seat.
Yeah, and I think one of the really unique thing about this is, in sports that there's a lot of physical and space awareness, I want to say, but in gaming, it's all sitting on your seat and it's all with your mind and with your headset and your voice, which means you are constantly communicating with the whole team. When you're in the field, maybe like the goalie can communicate with the leader at the front, but on the game, all five are always connected through the voices and headphones. So that means that all the information that is gathered is always shared. You pretty much hear almost 5 people communicate at the same time at all times during 1 hour, which is the game of CounterStrike.
When you guys play and compete, are you in the same room? Are you sitting right next to each other, or are you anywhere?
So there are tournaments where we travel and sit next to each other. We also do some sort of boot camps where for a full week we'll be sitting next to each other. And there are some gaming houses and offices. So a lot of people nowadays at a very high level, they live nearby and they practice daily next to each other. But I would say most of the teams at the moment across the world in all games, they do everything online, except for obviously the big prize cash tournaments. But it is completely different when you get near your teammate, when you work and play next to them, because the personalities takes even more space. You kind of can't breathe. If there's a conflict, you have to kind of solve it right away. So it's a completely different dynamic, and I think both are necessary. It's necessary sometimes to kind of play from a distance, and I think it's sometimes necessary to be in the same room and practice next to each other.
Well, you're blowing stuff up, and you're this is a pretty macho thing, it sounds like, and there's a bunch of guys that are listening to this right now that are wishing that their parents let them play this kind of stuff when they were growing up. But is your team all female? Is your team male? And going even further, what is it like being in this male-dominated world of esports?
Right now, I'm playing in an all-female team. I do this by choice. It's not something that it's enforced for me. I just really enjoy playing with these girls. And as far as being in a macho universe, I've been in this industry for almost 15 years, and I find that, and I do believe that in anywhere where there's a minority, you're always going to be a target, right? So I don't think it has anything to do with the fact that I'm a female. In gaming, I think it's because I'm a minority in gaming, and I think it's a society problem wherever, like, potentially I'm gonna throw stuff that I don't actually know the stats, but potentially male and nurses like could have the same effect but reverse. So it's more about why, as a society, do we feel that we need to point the difference and attack that difference when we're either like offended or where we're mad, where we want to release steam. Why do we need to attack that difference is something that we probably need to tackle more as a society, and especially when it's something that is online, like gaming, where it's so easy to just like pretty much insult someone without any repercussion because you don't even see that person getting hurt. You don't even know who they are. You just pretty much know they're a girl, they have a voice of a girl, and you just insult that right away with pretty much no reason. So it's about the internet, and it's about minority pointing. I think that's why it's really hard sometimes to be a female in gaming.
We'll return to this fun conversation with eSports world champion Stephanie Harvey in just a moment. Esports is quickly becoming one of the fastest growing activities. Esports teams are being formed at schools and colleges across the United States at a rapid pace. If you are part of these teams, then you might want to consider checking out our best-selling book, The Leadership Playbook, Become Your Team's Most Valuable Leader. This book is packed full of practical insights and stories to help individuals learn how to become better teammates and come together to form great teams. To find out more, please visit theleadershipplaybook.com. And now back to more of this great interview with Miss Harvey. How have you grown and kind of developed the ability to maybe have thicker skin or let that trash talk or let those negative comments affect you when you're playing?
Unfortunately, I think I just overall, like, the more and more that you get Ross, the less and less it affects you because you just get numb to it. Like, it's like if you get told every day mean things, it's like sometimes you're just like, whatever. Like, you're just kind of moving on from it. But at the same time, there's always a day where you feel like it's not a good day and you get told something really mean and you're just like really affected by it because, you're human, and today was the wrong day for you to get attacked, and it was harder than the other days. And, my mom always says that behind the dark clouds, there's always the sun. Like, the sun is always there. And sometimes you need to focus on that because whatever you do in life, you're going to have the clouds. They just come and go. So as long as you focus on the light and that there is the sun behind, you should be fine.
You mentioned your mom. Does she play video games as well?
When I was young, she would play with me, but not in the recent years, except I just installed a word game on her phone. It's called like Word Space, and it's pretty much because she doesn't speak English really well, so it's pretty much she just like with letters that are given, she needs to find words. It's kind of like Bogle, and she loves it because it also gives her the definition of the words every time she finds a word. So pretty much she's been playing that addictively for the last 2 months, and I told her she was a gamer the other day, and she kind of agreed. She's like, yeah, I'm a gamer. I need my little fix every day of this little game, and I really, really like it.
Well, it is becoming, a $1 billion industry, and it's absolutely, millions and millions of people watch you play, which is amazing. And, talk a little bit about the industry and clue us in on maybe where the industry is going and what the future of it is.
The thing about this medium, like gaming, and is I always say they're pretty much like in their teenage years. Even themselves, they don't really know where they're going. We just know that we're growing, that there's more and more money and more gamers in the world, and it's really difficult to kind of plan the curve that it's going to take because, when there's people watching, money involved, and so much cash and people getting interested, of course there's some ventures that are going to fail. Of course there's some games that are going to fail or some projects are going to fail. So we don't know if all the investments and the hype is going to stick and how it's going to stick and how it's going to grow, which I think is very, very interesting. But one thing for sure is that esports is not going to go anywhere because even when there was no money and no people interested, we still were competing. So like we did it out of passion for so long. So now that there's actually a way to do it for a living and there's money involved, I think it's going to kind of stabilize at some point. The scary part is, will I be able to continue doing it? Because I'm still one of the pioneer in my field, which is, I kind of do a little bit of everything. I kind of focus on the now, and I try to plan ahead like 1 or 2 year ahead, but I'm not planning ahead like 15 years ahead at the moment, because it's kind of impossible, because no one else ever did it, So I'm trying to plan so that I can have a 15-year ahead in gaming with what I have within the next 2 years max, So it's very interesting, very, I want to say, challenging. But for me, it's not scary, because I know I'll be okay, because no matter what, like, I'm going to find a way. But it can be scary for someone that is like 16 years old and now wants to do that for a living.
Well, you have, over 20,000 people follow your YouTube channel. And, millions watch you when you compete. Do you find that you have critics, that people will criticize some of the moves you make or some of the things you do or your team does?
Oh, yeah. I think that when I do great things, people don't really talk about it. When I do really, really bad things, people love to talk about it. So, yeah, I think I'm one of the most, I would say, polarized person in gaming, especially female, like regarding how in esports, how like I attract people that really hate me and people that really like me. I feel that everyone kind of has an opinion on me. Nobody's like, oh, I'm sorry, yeah, whatever, I don't care. Like, they're either really have something to say negatively about me or something positive to say about me. And, I think it's fine. I think that we can't please everyone. As long as, for me, I respect my integrity. I work really hard and I love what I do, and I can help others while doing it. That's what matters.
How do you handle failure? How do you handle when maybe you have some setbacks in a contest or just in life in general? What has been some of the keys for you handling that?
I think that's one of the hardest thing for me. Still today, I really have issues with failure. Like everyone, I don't like to fail. But like, I take it very hard. And that's what I've been working on in the last year, I would say. It's one of the most important thing is how to lose, how to recover, how to keep your energy and motivation to continue working towards a goal. It's one of the most important thing, I think, as an athlete and as a esports player, is losing is not the end of it. It's not, if you quit after losing, then that's the end of it. So how do you take a loss and how do you learn from it and how do you get better out of it is, I think, one of the most important thing in my field.
Do the people that are on these esports teams, do they tend to be friends? Do they tend to get along really well, or is it just purely professional, purely business, and they get along because they have to?
I think people get to be friends, and I actually believe that if people are friends within a team, they communicate better, they have better synergy, they can talk about issues better, and right now, because you leave a team or you play with someone, it doesn't mean that in 10 years you won't play with them again. It's so interesting to see the changes in who plays with whom and how the contracts evolve and who you're kind of quote unquote stuck playing with. If you don't have good relationships with even your enemies in the game, you might burn your career. So you need to watch out what you do, what you say. It's not a kid's game anymore. It's pretty much adult contracts, money, and reputation. Really important, not just how good you are.
You've been playing esports professionally since, over a decade now. Was there a time, kind of your an aha moment or a time when you're like, number one, I'm really, really good at this, but number two, people are watching me. Like, this is a big deal and people are going to, or was there an aha moment, or was it just kind of transitioned into that and you didn't even realize it?
I think I kind of transitioned into that because especially when I was at the peak of my gaming career, like skill wise, it wasn't big. Like, gaming wasn't big. So people still today don't know how I was back in the day. Like I would say in the late 2000s, early 2010s, that's when I was like extremely good at the game. And it was the beginning of the big bubble that we have right now. And like now I have to kind of win that respect back because a lot of the people don't know, if that makes sense. So like right now I'm working as hard as possible, and I was actually in China a couple weeks ago for a tournament, and for me it was so important to play good. And it was only like I don't have to prove anything to anyone, but for some reason it was so important for me to play amazing at that tournament because I felt that my career was on the line then. Like if I fail this time, I know I won't be able to get on a team anymore. So I had to do good, So there was so much for me that was on the line for that. So my haha moment was more like a oof moment. Like, okay, I did it. Now let's continue working hard. Let's continue focusing on my gaming career because I don't want to retire. And although I would make more money if I was retired, that's not what I want. I want to compete. I love competing. I think it's amazing.
And that you deal with stress pretty well like that? That motivates you pretty well?
I think I deal with stress really well when I'm prepared. If I do something and I'm not prepared, I don't deal with stress really well. I get anxiety. So that's why I'm an extremely organized person, and I pretty much work really hard on, like, before events. I make sure that I'm ready for an event, and like not only mentally but physically, and in the game and out the game, and like everything now matters for me. Before I would kind of burn myself with no sleep and make sure I would be ready in the game, but I would forget everything else around, which is my food, my physical condition, and I would just kind of get anxiety. But now I like balance myself way better when I'm at events, which means I can focus 100% on the game because everything else is good,
And you mentioned conditioning or eating right, things like that. What is in the day of the life of a professional gamer? We think about a gamer or someone that does that just sitting in their mom's basement all day and dropping food on their shirt and that kind of stuff. What does the day in the life look like for you, for a professional gamer?
I personally have a really tight schedule, but I don't think it's like that for everyone else. But for me, I start with waking up and going to the gym. Like right now, I went to the gym before this little podcast, and after that, I do all my paperwork or emails or meetings or interviews. So I kind of make sure that it's all concluded before the rest of my day, so that way I don't have to like stress and worry about anything else than the gaming part. When I reach the gaming part, I usually streams for my fans. So streaming is pretty much live broadcasting my gameplay footage that is before my practice. So I do that for a couple hours where people can hang out, talk to me, and just kind of catch up. They watch me play games and we talk together, and that's for the fans, 100% for the fans, because if it was only for me, I would not be doing that. And then after that's concluded, it's practice time. So I would say it starts for me around 5 to 6 p.m. practice time. I do a little bit of solo practice where I'll watch a replay of a game, or I'll work on my aiming, and I'll warm up somehow. And then after that is team practice for 4 hours about. So we go over strategies, and we go over replays of what we did, and we talk about new situations, and then we call it scrimming. So we do scrimmage where we play with other teams that are not for competition. They're just like off-season matches, I would say. And then sometimes we'll have an online match officially that's going to be broadcasted, and people are going to be able to watch our match. But most of the time, it's just that's how practice ends. We debrief, we have the coach debriefing, and then we give each other homework for the next day, and then I kind of relax and play mobile games on my phone until bedtime.
Nice. Well, anyone listening to this podcast today or this interview can definitely tell that you're a sharp person. But if they needed any more proof, I wanted to ask you about, you were on a TV show a couple years ago, You won the 3rd season of Canada's Smartest Person. What was that like, to be crowned the smartest person in Canada?
Well, you gotta know that it was a game show, okay? So, well, other than the fact that it was a game show, it was actually pretty cool because I just did it for the experience. Kind of, I thought I would get knocked out pretty much right away. I came on the show for both days as on the red eye. So I was flying from another event, no sleep, just flew in the plane during the night, and I landed at like 8, and at 8:30 I was on set, So it was very, very exhausting times for me when I filmed it, and I pretty much every question I thought, okay, I'm going to get knocked out next round. I'm going to get knocked out next round. And then eventually I just won the whole thing. And like, the only thing I want to say is I was kind of more excited of winning this for gamers than for myself. It was kind of proving that, gaming actually do give you skills, and you can actually be pretty smart just from gaming full time. And like, I was competing against like mathematicians, cancer researchers, helicopter pilots, like all these people that are really, really talented in their field. And in the end, whether it's the pressure of doing it live in front of an audience and on TV and whatnot, but in the end I won. So it was really, really awesome to just randomly win this.
Did you feel like maybe because you have so many people that watch you and you're under the microscope and you're used to high pressure situations, do you think that helped you on that show?
I think so. I think that I took it one question at a time, and I was zero nervous from the television, like zero. I could not have cared less. And maybe sometimes, I think most of the people on the show was their first time in front of the TV or cameras. So maybe it affected their performance. But when we compete at any kind of level, there's always a camera filming you. So for me, I was already used to that kind of thing, and the pressure of like having to answer within like 5 seconds a question and like all these kind of things. I've been there, done that, so maybe that really helped me. Who knows?
So has there been any time, honestly now, where you've turned to somebody and you said, I am the smartest person in Canada, you should listen to me?
No, because I know it's a game show, and it wasn't about knowledge and whatnot. It was really just about like basic smart, so meaning like logic and and music awareness and social awareness and words awareness. Like, it wasn't anything about knowledge. So I'm pretty sure knowledge can be considered something that is smart, and I don't think that I'm that knowledgeable about everything,
That's all right. My wife would have gotten tired of hearing me if I had won that. I would have constantly reminded her she should listen to me because I'm evidently smart. And I have video to prove it. Are there some things that you're involved in right now, some charitable causes or business ventures or anything that you wanted to mention?
Yeah, well, I'm always supporting a couple of causes, especially one that's dear to me. That's called Cyber Smile. It's pretty much a anti-cyberbullying charity. It's now in the US as well as in the UK, but it's worldwide, and it pretty much raises awareness to cyberbullying. For me, cyberbullying is so important, like the fight against it, because it's something that we take for granted. We kind of all know that it exists. We kind of all close our eyes to it. We kind of just say, get tough skin. Don't let yourself get kind of affected by it. But it's a lot bigger than that. It's actually one of the biggest problem of our society because we don't tackle it at all. It's a silent issue, and we just kind of accept that it's there without having any support from the government or schooling or, and it's affecting mental health like crazy. 1 out of 4 children is getting bullied at the moment. It increases chances of suicide by 2 to 7 times. Like, it's actually insane how it's awful. And Yeah, I think it's super important that we raise awareness to it because it's not just closing your computer or your mobile phone anymore. We're connected 24/7, and if we're not aware that it exists, the next generation is going to struggle really hard.
She's Steph Harvey on Instagram, Miss Harvey on Twitter, and Miss Harvey on her Twitch.tv channel. And if you aren't familiar with Twitch, that's something that you need to get familiar with. That's something that Amazon started, I believe. Is that correct?
They bought it recently. So a couple years ago, Amazon bought it.
Yeah, you can actually watch. You can watch Stephanie play her games on Twitch. You can watch her live. You can see her and you can see the screen that she's seeing. So
yeah,
it's pretty interesting. We'll definitely put all those in the show notes. But Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us today. This is a fun conversation, and good luck with your next contest.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and good luck with your projects as well.
Miss Harvey, as she is known to fans, is at the top of the esports game. She is one of the most popular esports players in the world. And that was a fun conversation. We appreciate her taking time away from her busy schedule to join us. You can check out the show notes to see some of what she does with esports on a daily basis. If you know someone that is into esports or video games, this might be an episode to share with them. Also, if you have a few extra seconds in your day, we'd love to get a comment or two on iTunes. Thanks so much, and remember that success is a choice. What choice will you make today?